Welcome to Gamecock Pod Live.
For the next 3 to 4 years, I'll be committed to the University of... Okay,
this is Rogers again to the 25, 20, 15, 10. Rogers scores! Jackie Bradley Jr. delivers for the Gamecocks. Lost it up, looking for Kelly. Touchdown! Can you believe it?
And South Carolina is sending shockwaves through the SEC.
Frederick plays it in at the buzzer. That's a win! Unbelievable! I don't believe it!
And now, live from Studio 54 of the Gamecock Pod Studios, here's the Cockfather himself, Keith Alsep.
All right, everybody, welcome into the March 13th edition of Gamecock Pod Live, episode number 1434, where your Gamecocks finished the regular season in a three-way tie for second place. Maybe it was a four-way tie, and now conference tournaments are getting ready to start. Last week we had the women's tournaments. This week it is the men's tournaments, and growing up as a kid, I couldn't wait for, usually it was Friday, Saturday, and Sunday of the ACC tournament. And it always seemed like about Friday at right before lunchtime, I'd come down with an upset stomach and wind up going home and getting home at noon and turning on the Jefferson Pilot ACC tournament with Jim Thacker and Billy Packer. And you watch basketball games all day. 4 games on the first day, then the semifinals on Saturday and the finals on Sunday. It was pure heaven. The ACC has already kicked off their tournament today. Virginia Tech, a 1-point lead, 37-36 on Florida State. The SEC tournament gets underway later tonight. Let's jump right in to your Nana's Porch news, notes, and headlines brought to you by that award-winning full-service catering company servicing the greater Charlotte area, Nana's Porch. Whether it is a banquet, a wedding, a corporate event, a backyard bash with the whole hog barbecue now that we've sprung forward. Daylight savings time is upon us. The weather is starting to warm up, but it's still cool enough to cook that whole hog all night long. And I don't know, maybe you crack a bottle on the top of a bottle of some Mr. John Daniels, old number 7. I don't know. But whatever your catering needs, Nana's Porch has got you covered. You want to bring in a food trailer, Nana's Porch voted among the top 3 food trailers in Charlotte by the local newspaper poll. And as we all know, the award-winning pimento cheese voted number 1 and number 2, the smoky jalapeno and then regular flavor, in the meat and cheese category by the North Carolina Specialty Foods Association. I encourage all of you, if you have a catering need, support this Gamecock-owned and operated business. Get in touch with my good friend Chris Payne. Tell him Keith Alsep at Gamecock Pod Live sent you. Go to nanasporch.com. That's NANASPORCH.com NASPORCH.com. Jump in our Nana's Porch chat box. Leave your questions, comments. We're talking a lot of hoops today. Lamont Paris, who was named on Monday by his peers, the SEC coaches, as the SEC Coach of the Week, yesterday named SEC Coach, no, I hope I didn't say Coach of the Week. I meant Coach of the Year. We've been dealing with these weekly awards for so long. So Monday, Paris named Coach of the Year by his peers, the SEC coaches. Yesterday, Paris named the Associated Press SEC Coach of the Year, an honor no other Gamecock men's basketball head coach has had bestowed upon them. So congratulations to Lamont Paris, who led the team to a 25-6 record, 13-5 in the Southeastern Conference. A year ago, South Carolina won 11 games. The biggest turnaround in the nation, going from 11 to 25 games. And how about winning more SEC games than you had total wins all of last year? So Tennessee won the regular season 14-4, and then Kentucky, Auburn, Alabama, and South Carolina all finished in a four-way tie for second place. The Gamecocks picked up their seventh SEC road win on Saturday, knocking off the Bulldogs of Mississippi State 93-89 in overtime behind the game of the season by B.J. Mack. 25 points, 8 of 11 from the field, 2 of 5 behind the three-point line, and 7 of 8 from the free throw line. In 31 minutes, he paced 4 Gamecocks in double figures. Colin Murray Boyles, who was named to the all-freshman team by the SEC coaches, 19 points on 9 of 10 from the field, 1 of 1 from the free throw line, 8 rebounds, and 6 assists and no turnovers in 39 minutes out of the 45 minutes played in the game. Zach Davis turned in another great performance, 13 points, 4 of 5 from the field. Meechie Johnson, a not so efficient 16 points on 16 field goal attempts, just 3 of 11 from 3, 4 of 16 from the field, but 5 of 6 from the free throw line. And as a team, the Gamecocks shot 20 of 24 from the free throw line. They had to have all of them to win it. They tried their best to lose it. Fouling Mississippi State at the end of regulation. Of course, Pat Adams was quick to blow his whistle. We have an award on the show that was handed out on Monday. He was one of 3 winners of the Dick of the Week award, along with Kim Mulkey and the Net, which dropped the Gamecocks 2 more spots after picking up a quad 1 road win. The Net is broken and it's never getting fixed in my eyes. So by the Associated Press, no Gamecocks on the first or second team. Talon Cooper and Meechie Johnson made second team all SEC by the coaches, and the coaches know, right? All right. The Gamecocks will tomorrow play the second game of the day, and they will face the winner of tonight's 7 o'clock game between Vanderbilt and Arkansas. Should the Gamecocks win that one, Auburn would be waiting in the winner's bracket with the double bye to face the Gamecocks on Friday. And if you're South Carolina, wouldn't you just love to end Auburn's run in the SEC and get revenge for that 40-point beatdown and show them that you're not the same team? Because Auburn is not the same team when they play away from home. The tournament is in Nashville. It gets underway later today. I do think that Vanderbilt-Arkansas game will be the first game of the day. And so the Gamecocks, think about this. Your only 2 road losses of the season were in the state of Alabama. To Alabama in like your second SEC game of the season where it was tied at halftime, kind of got away from you in the second half. And then after winning 7 straight SEC games and being ranked number 11 in the country, you wind up playing at Auburn and you just didn't have it. You got run out of the building, got beat by 40. Then you came home and blew a 16-point second half lead and lost to LSU. If you win that game, you get a share of the SEC regular season championship. But maybe not, because then Tennessee has more to play for and maybe they don't lose to Kentucky. But South Carolina, you lost to Georgia at home, which was really inexcusable at the time, although it did make you a better team. You lost to LSU, and you really let Auburn beat you twice, but a phenomenal year. I'm not going to minimize it. Nobody had 25-6, 13-5, and a tie for second place in the SEC on your bingo cards when the season began. We were just hoping, best case, they have a winning record. They do enough to get in the NIT, and that's why I think Lamont Paris has got more Coach of the Year honors to win, and that means he's going to win some national Coach of the Year awards, and especially if the Gamecocks make some noise in the SEC tournament this week. You'd love to get at least to the semis, and knocking off Auburn would be just another feather in your cap and help your seeding. Gamecocks right now appear to be firmly on the 5 line. They would play a 12 seed. It could be USF. It could be, Princeton. A lot of different predictions out there for the Gamecocks. But if they win 2 games in the SEC tournament, I think they move up to a 4 seed. And you'd really like the 4-13 because there's a lot of 5-12 upsets. I do think South Carolina is built for the postseason. They're playing a lot of guys. They play the right way. They play great defense. They move the ball. They take great shots. They play with deliberate pace. Those are the teams that can really advance, especially when they're shooting the 3 ball in the SEC tournament. All right, well, women's basketball, kind of a boring weekend for them. Well, unless you've been hiding under a rock, you know I'm joking about that, right? Gamecocks, after dispatching of Texas A&M on Friday, Gamecocks 79, Texas A&M 68. It was sloppy. It was this brand new team's first postseason game. There were a lot of nerves and there were a lot of turnovers. 24 turnovers by the Gamecocks. Camila Cardoso led 3 players in double figures with 17 points on 6 of 7 from the field, 5 of 6 from the free throw line. Tessa Johnson, who is really coming along. I got more on her and MIlaysia Fulwiley coming up. She had 13 points, 3 of 5 from the field, 1 of 2 from downtown, and 6 of 7 from the free throw line. She's really excelling. She's more confident now. You can see her ability to take players off the dribble, whether it's with the right hand or the left hand, pull up in the mid-range, and she's got the rainbow archer from downtown, and it's a beautiful thing. She's a great player, and quite frankly, moving forward, I think both she and MIlaysia Fulwiley have earned more playing time. They're not just the future. They're the present, particularly, unless Raven Johnson gets her groove back. So then on Saturday, the Gamecocks played Tennessee, and I was at a baseball tournament. I'd listened to the men's thrilling overtime win, was getting ready to go back on the field, checked my phone in the locker room, and South Carolina was up 27-8. Eventually, they would be up 31-10. And I thought, well, Kelly Harper, they're getting run out of the building. This may be her last game at Tennessee. Then, little do I know, the Gamecocks would allow Tennessee to score 50 points in the second half, outscore them 25-14 in the fourth quarter. And look, somewhere along the way, you've got to have a little magic and a little luck if you are going to pick up a win. And little did I know, South Carolina was down by 2 points, okay, and they fouled Tennessee, and Jasmine Powell choked off 2 free throws with about 6 seconds to play. And South Carolina dribbles up the floor, and Tennessee fouls. They had a foul to give. They fouled with 1.1 second to go. And if they would have just let South Carolina go, maybe it's a buzzer beater. So South Carolina, no timeouts. Dawn Staley has clearly prepared her team for end of game, time and score situations. And we've all seen it. They throw it in. They don't really guard the inbounder. Tamari Key has both feet in the at the bottom of the circle. And Camila Cardoso calmly catches the ball, steps back behind the three-point line and launches it, and the bank was open. She banks it in, and her teammates rush the floor, and just the dichotomy, the contrast of the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat, especially against Tennessee, who I have despised in all sports except for when Pat Summitt coached and my guy Rick Barnes. But you hate it for players like Jewel Spear, who was 9 for 9 from the free throw line and had 21 points. Rakia Jackson, 22 points. Those were the only Vols in double figures. But Cardoso, again, 13 points. She hits the big three at the end. And like I said, on your way to a championship season, you're going to have to win a couple of games you're not supposed to win. And at the end of that game, Tennessee, all they have to do is make the free throws, and it doesn't really matter what South Carolina does. Then it's Tennessee and LSU on Sunday. But instead, the Gamecocks advance to take on Trailer Park Barbie. And, well, I don't call her Bayou Barbie, but I'm not going to say what I call her, but we'll just call her Barbie from the Hood. Angel Reese. Is there any doubt she is the dirtiest player in the country? Okay. So South Carolina beats LSU for the second time on Sunday. We'll talk about all of this on the men's side and the women's side with the co-host of the Gamecock Basketball Only Podcast, Brice Hedgecock, coming up in just a few minutes. Okay. South Carolina was clearly the better team. MIlaysia Fulwiley put on a performance for the ages. She was named the tournament's most outstanding player, 24 points, 8 of 12 from the field, 4 of 5 from downtown. You could tell she was really feeling it. Like, she was too hyped up for that Texas A&M game, right? Like 1 of 6 from the field. But she did have 4 assists and just 1 turnover and was 4 for 4 from the free throw line. Against Tennessee, Fulwiley had 13 points, 5 of 11 from the field, 3 of 4 from the free throw line, 4 rebounds. Again, no turnovers, 1 steal, 1 block shot. Tessa Johnson in that game, 3 of 8 from the field, 2 of 2 from the free throw line, 8 points, 3 assists, just 1 turnover and 1 steal for her. But Cardoso with the shot heard round the SEC. No doubt about it. Gamecocks move on to take on LSU. They win 79-72. South Carolina's in control, and with about 2 minutes and 8 seconds to go, MIlaysia Fulwiley picks Flau'jae Johnson's pocket. And Johnson not just only grabbed her from behind, intentional foul, but spun her around about twice. Okay, earlier in the game, you had Angel Reese, who had elbowed Cardoso in the jaw, in the neck. She pulled her hair. Well, then we were all wondering, how did Camilla get a bloody lip? Well, with about 4 minutes to go, Angel Reese threw another flagrant elbow and busted her lip. And I think Camilla Cardoso at that point had reached her boiling point. And after she had taken the cheap shots from Angel Reese, 3 of them, then not only to see Flau'jae Johnson grab MIlaysia Fulwiley from behind and almost throw her to the floor, then Flau'jae Johnson shoves Angel Watkins and tries to elbow her in the face. Cardoso lost her cool, and she shoved her to the ground, and she got ejected. And she should have. But you know what? I really didn't see Angel Reese go after Camilla Cardoso, even though Trailer Park Trash Barbie Kim Mulkey said in the postgame she wished that Cardoso would have pushed Angel. Well, I do too, because I would have really liked to see Angel Reese get her ass beat on national TV. Because she's a punk. She's a bully. Okay, she didn't want any of Cardoso, and I got to tell you, she damn sure didn't want any of Ashlyn Watkins either. Okay, Was Watkins talking some trash? Yes. Okay, there was a 12-minute delay. Players left the bench. Cardoso got ejected. She will be suspended for the first round of the NCAA tournament. Whoop the frickin' do, la di frickin' da, as Tommy Boy would say. Well, actually, that was the guy that lived in a van down by the river. You just start Watkins. South Carolina's team is deep. All the other players that left the bench area were suspended or ejected from the game. They had to go to the bench. The Gamecock players were not allowed to cut down the nets or participate in the championship ceremony, so they did it in the locker room. None of those players for either team should be suspended. But Brice and I will get into this, but it's worth mentioning right now. Okay, why was Flau'jae Johnson not assessed a technical foul? Another one. Like, she would have been ejected if that would have happened. So maybe that's why they didn't do it, because LSU only had 5 players left. South Carolina had 6 players. But quite frankly, her actions after the intentional foul, shoving Ashlyn Watkins and then trying to elbow her in the face, warranted at least a technical foul. Then her brother jumped over the scorer's table onto the floor over a security guy. He was escorted from the arena in handcuffs. That should have been a technical on LSU's bench. And Haley Van Lith ran up there and put her hands on Camila Cardoso. That should have been 6 more free throws for the Gamecocks. Okay. It's really ridiculous. And the officials, when you have 3 officials, there's no excuse for missing the hair pulling, the second elbow to the face, and even at the scorer's table, and what they watch the whole thing. Okay, more penalties should have been assessed to LSU, and quite frankly, I think Greg Sankey should have sanctioned Kim Mulkey for what she said, because she's like summer vacation, no class. Okay, Angel Reese got up there at the podium and talked about how she's not scared of South Carolina. Well, guess what? You don't have to be scared, even though deep down you are, girl. That was what we call overcompensation, because you've never beaten South Carolina. Not at Maryland and not at LSU. 0-3 at LSU, okay? And I didn't see you come and try to get in Ashlyn Watkins' face or Camila Cardoso's face. You know why? Because you were scared out of your mind. You'd get your teeth knocked down your throat. Kim Mulkey has been widely criticized. USA Today, multiple national analysts on ESPN, national podcast hosts. I mean, Mulkey is just the epitome of, well, you can take the girl out of the trailer park, but you can't take the trailer park out of the girl. Again, we're going to get more into this with Brice Hedgecock and that interview coming up. Gamecock Basketball Only. All right, Gamecock Baseball. Last night, they played Georgia State in North Augusta at SRP Park, which is beautiful. They've got a beautiful little district there that's kind of reminds me of a mini Battery, if you've ever been to the Braves game, or kind of like a Vista area, and then there's the park. Gamecocks win 4-3. They scored first as Dylan Brewer singled, stole second, went to third on a pass ball, then scored on Ethan Petrie's single. Georgia State used 3 doubles in the top of the third to take a 2-1 lead. The Gamecocks tied it at 2 in the bottom of the 5th. And then Gamecocks get another run in the 6th inning, and that holds up for the 4-3 win. The Gamecocks begin SEC play on the road at Ole Miss this weekend. Gamecocks pitching staff now has a 2.21 ERA. All right, Gamecock football had their pro day yesterday. Amari Brown turning in a 4.31 in the 40. Xavier Leggett doing 24 reps of 225 pounds on the bench press. He was like a gazelle running routes. Those 24 reps would be tied for the 11th most reps by a wide receiver in the past 25 years if he would have done it at the NFL Combine. Spencer Rattler looked the part. He's been working diligently. He looks like he's getting the ball out of his hand a little bit more. And then my guy, Dante Turbo Miller, who was not granted a waiver by the NCAA to get an extra year, from the same high school as Melvin Ingram, played in the Ivy League. He ran the fastest 40 at the pro day at 4.27 seconds, benched 225 pounds 28 times, and had a vertical leap of 37.5 inches. He's small, but he was really good. So just a few of the highlights. Marcellus Dial measured 5'11 and 5/8, 191 pounds. He did not run the 40, but he ran a 4.44 shuttle and a 7.29 three-cone drill. Nick Gargiulo was 6'5 and 1/8, 313 pounds, 34 and 2/8 inch arms, a wingspan of 81 and a quarter inches. He ran a 4.63 shuttle, which for a big man like that is really impressive. Tyreek Johnson, a little over 6'3.5", 283. He ran 4.7 in the 40, 1.56 in the 10 yard sprint, 2.72 in the 20. He ran a 4.47 shuttle and 7.65 three-cone drill. Trey Knox, 6'3 and 1/8, 234 pounds. He ran a 4.91 40, which is kind of disappointing. 4.47 in the shuttle. Rattler measured in at 6 feet and 1/4 inches, 211 pounds. Jordan Strong, 6'3 and 3/4, 242 pounds. He ran 4.75 in the 40, 4.6 in the shuttle, and 7.44 in the three-cone drill. I think Rattler is working his way up the draft boards. So contrary to the national view, by the way, we're setting another record here today on Gamecock Pod Live with the most live viewers. And so thanks to everybody for tuning in. jump on in the Nana Sports chat box. Gary, no recruiting tidbits yet, but I think you'll see Lamont Paris start to make his move in the portal. First, though, you got to see how many guys leave, because Meechie Johnson could be back. Josh Gray could be back. Really, I think it was the BBV. He's out of eligibility. Talon Cooper is out of eligibility. BJ Mack is out of eligibility. And maybe one more. Let's see here on the men's roster. And you've already got two. So Ebo, you got to make a decision on him, whether he's going to come back. Stephen Clark, he's out of eligibility. He walked. BJ Mack. And then Talon Cooper and the BBV. And so you're also hoping that the notorious CMB, I mean, look, the way he's playing, if South Carolina goes on a magical run in the postseason and he gets a first-round guarantee, he's going to be gone. So you're going to have to replace some guys. Miles Studi's listed as a junior. Meechie Johnson's listed as a junior. Zach Davis will be back. Ebo, Abrima Deba could come back. Jacoby Wright could be back. So Lamont Paris is in a good place to be very choosy in the portal. Okay, you signed 2 high school guys. And so we'll see what happens there. All right, last thing before we get to a commercial break, and then we go to my guy Brice Hedgecock of the Gamecock Basketball Only Podcast. The sport of women's basketball is in the best place it's ever been. I do think South Carolina LSU is going to up. So Gamecock Sports Replay says BBV does have 1 year left. Well, I think you really hope he goes like on a medical or becomes a graduate assistant so he can finish law school, because it'd be nice to really fill that slot. Thanks for the heads up on that. So everybody knew Caitlin Clark was going to break the record. She did. But let's look at this. Of all the conference champions, South Carolina and Texas were the only 2 number 1 seeds that won the regular season to win their conference tournament. And Juju Watkins, Southern Cal, the number 1 player in the country, she won, and Southern Cal knocked off Stanford to win the final Pac-12 tournament. Hannah Hidalgo, Notre Dame, they won the ACC tournament and finished in the top 10. MIlaysia Fulwiley led South Carolina to the SEC championship and was the most outstanding player of the tournament. And then Madison Booker, who's from Mississippi, who South Carolina and Texas battled for her, just like South Carolina and Southern Cal battled for Juju Watkins. She leads Texas. That's 4 freshmen that led their teams to their conference tournament championships. Look, Caitlin Clark's a great player. She's not the greatest player of all time. She's not on the Mount Rushmore of women's basketball players, right? Like, I'm putting Cheryl Miller up there. I'm putting Ann Drysdale up there. I'm putting Diana Taurasi up there, and Maya Moore. That's probably it. Okay, you could add Asia Wilson and Breonna Stewart. You could certainly add, maybe I put Candace Parker up there. is one of the all-time greats. That'd probably be it. Cheryl Miller, Ann Drysdale, Candace Parker, and Diana Taurasi. But Asia Wilson is certainly going to be making her case to be on the Mount Rushmore of the greatest women's basketball players of all time. All right, let's get to my interview with Brice Hedgecock. But first, this commercial message on how you can become a member of Gamecock Pod Daily and get this podcast every single day, Monday through Friday, and the Garnet and Black Town Hall, which I think we'll have a packed room tonight. I can't wait for that. We'll be right back after this commercial message with Brice Hedgecock.
If you enjoy listening and watching the free Wednesday show, now live streaming on YouTube, and would love more Gamecock Pod Daily, join our growing Gamecock family by becoming a monthly or annual subscriber. You'll be able to listen to the show every day of the week and listen to guests like J.C. Sherbert, Hale McGranahan, and John Whittle from thebigspur.com, Colin Taylor and Mike Uva from Gamecock Central, Emily Adams from the Greenville News, Ben Portnoy, Michael Lanana, and Jeremiah Holloway from GoGamecocks.com, Michael W. Bratton, the host of That SEC podcast, and many, many more. As a VIP subscriber, you can join or listen to the weekly live Zoom call with up to 100 of your favorite Gamecocks and friends. After the show is an unrecorded overtime segment where the real scoop gets dropped and discussed. It's like going down to your local pub or sports bar and having a conversation with your Gamecock friends about last week's football game, men's and women's basketball games, and Gamecock baseball. And of course, there's always recruiting to discuss. In addition to the weekly Zoom call, VIP subscribers get the most popular podcast, The Morning After, which is released every Sunday morning during football season, and more VIP perks are in the works. Follow Keith on Twitter at KAllset, or follow the show on Twitter at Gamecock Pod. Go to the top of the homepage and follow the link. If all else fails, go to patreon.com/Gamecock Pod Daily. Join now and get up to 3 months free off an annual VIP subscription. You will love it, guaranteed. Now, back to Gamecock Pod Live.
And we welcome back into Gamecock Live one half of the dynamic duo from the Gamecock Basketball Only Podcast, my good friend Brice Hedgecock and fellow referee insulter from the Dallas Final Four last year.
That's right.
Never forget that. But
if only Joe Lindsay and Pat Adams was at the women's Final Four, we would have had even more to say.
Well, I've already had a lot to say about Pat Adams, but since this is on YouTube, you'll have to listen on Gamecock Pod Daily. But let's just say he was one of 3 award winners on our Monday show. And so we're going to do what you guys do best. We wish Sumter was here. I understand he's had a death in the family, and so our heartfelt condolences go out to him and his family. But we're fortunate to have Brice with us, and so it's kind of a coin flip how we were going to start this. Was it going to be Gamecock men or women? And at the end, we can really decide who's had the more remarkable season, because both teams have really had not on your bingo card type seasons. But I guess since Lamont only won 11 games all of last year. Will start with men's basketball. Earlier this week, named by his peers as the SEC Coach of the Year after leading the biggest turnaround in the nation from year 1 to year 2, just like Lou Holtz did from year 1 to year 2. We hope his longevity turns out to be a lot better than Lou.
And he's not 80 years old, so we got some years with him.
Right, and hopefully he's not going to try to reinvent the Notre Dame triple option with Tony Rice either. But Gamecocks finished the regular season 25-6. They go 13-5 in the SEC. And Brice, South Carolina had more SEC road wins, 7, than SEC home wins, 6. And really the only acceptable home loss was the last one to Tennessee. You blew 2 quad 3 games at home against Georgia, which you went to Athens and revenged, but you only got you blew the 16-point second half lead against LSU, or South Carolina is maybe the number 1 seed, or at least they are getting a share of the SEC regular season championship.
Keith, if I would have told you at the beginning of the year that we were going to go 13-5 in the league, you would start looking at it with a pencil and paper at our schedule and go, well, they're going to beat LSU. They're going to beat Georgia, probably going to lose to Tennessee, probably going to lose to Kentucky. And then we go and we beat Kentucky. We win at Tennessee. We have a competitive game, lose at home to Tennessee, but then lose to Georgia and LSU at home. You wouldn't have believed it, right? But this team, for some reason, calm, cool, and collected on the road, except if we played in the state of Alabama. That was just but I don't think we've ever matched up well with Alabama and Auburn. But outside of that, these guys just – it's nice with the transfer portal when you have 22, 23-year-old transfers that have been around the block and they don't get rattled. And then you have CMB Colin Murray Boyles, who should have been the freshman player of the year if that was an award, because if he played his full season, he would have had numbers, at least be second team All SEC. That guy is acting like he's a 24-year-old, 6-year guy, has the softest hands I've ever seen in my life. He drives with the fury of, I don't know, any NBA All-Star, and then he just kisses it off the glass. It's just beautiful. But just the mixture of the transfers with the developed players. Look, there's a reason Lamont Paris won SEC Coach of the Year. The guy can game day coach. He develops freshmen. He develops transfers, and he doesn't use the excuse that Frank Martin used to use as it's going to take us half the year to get them to gel. They were gelling the first week of the season. I've run out of good things to say about the men's basketball team. I know they had a couple slip-ups, but I'm not going to complain at 13-5. And even if we're a 5th seed in the SEC, let's go out there and make a run. And because, in the past when I went to the SEC tournament, I've never brought a change of clothes because I knew we were losing game 1. But I just have a feeling this team can make a run, even though we have a tough bracket. Arkansas is rolling with Battle coming back from injury for Arkansas. And I'm assuming we're going to play Arkansas, right? Because maybe Vandy, they did beat Florida. So it could be between those two. And then you'd love a rematch, Keith, with Auburn. And we're not playing them in the jungle. A lot of things are in front of us. But, yeah, great year. I got no complaints. The only thing I'll say about Lamont Paris, he doesn't know when to call a timeout. But because of that, we've won some games. And so I can't complain too loudly about that. But overall, I grade him an A+ because he killed it this year.
Well, I mean, no doubt about it. First of all, though, Brice, you left out the part where I would have, if you would have told me we were going 13-5 in the SEC, I would have asked you to be drug tested, and I would want to see the results.
You would have said, you mean 5-13? No, it's. I mean, I went back to Sumter and I's review a preview of the season, and we were hoping for 9-9. I think we came on here and talked to you. Maybe 10-8 would just be fantastic, and we hit that last week or 2 weeks ago. It's just at the end of the day, Lamont Paris can coach, and he doesn't yell at his players, and they love him, and it's refreshing to see. And we go into every game thinking we have a chance. It's kind of like with Steve Spurrier and Carolina football. When you went on the road, people were scared to play them. And just like us, in our mind, Keith, we're always like, oh, we're going to have to get lucky to win this game in the past. I think people see us on their schedule and go, oh, man, South Carolina's coming in. I don't know if we can handle Cooper, Mack, Michi, Colin Murray, Boyles. They might be too much for us.
Well, I mean, no doubt about it. And so, I mean, if you look at this team, so you have 3 buckets of players, right? You have the holdovers, Jacoby Wright, Josh Gray, and Zach Davis, right?
Right.
And then you have the portal guys, okay, Michi, who we may get for 3 years.
I think he has one more year, right? Next year?
He does.
Got one more.
You got Michi, Talon Cooper, BJ Mack, and
Stephen Clark.
Miles Studi,
Yep.
Stephen Clark, and we can't call him Notorious because it's the Notorious CMB, but we have the BBV, who is not playing, thankfully.
The best cheerleader and lawyer on the team.
Yes, and then you've got and we're seeing Ebo, right? Abrima Debo, who
it's hard to come back from a torn Achilles. It's hard to come back from a torn Achilles.
Yeah.
I'm surprised he's playing.
Yeah, and I definitely didn't like it against Florida when you had him and Morris Ugasuk on the court at the same time. We didn't see that against Mississippi State, right? And then you've got the freshmen, Colin Murray Boyles and Ugasuk, and then you're redshirting Arden Conyers, right?
Right.
So, look, he's not just done it with his guys. He's not just inherited a roster. He's taken a lot of different guys and kind of like a quilt, just patched them together, and the sum of the parts, the whole is better than the sum of the parts.
How about the development of Michi, who was just a 3-point, 30-foot shooter last year, and now I know we had about 2 weeks in the season where I think maybe lacked a little confidence, but outside of that, the guy he knows he can drive to the basket and beat a guy off the dribble. And that Florida game, he took that guy that was 6'6", 6'7", and was just banging with him. That drive when we went up late in the second where he banged on the guy and drove the lane and pushed him off and kissed it off the glass. It's just Michi has made it to a new level, the development of him. And then I think maybe because of Miles Studi getting hurt, Zach Davis being kind of forced to play 30-plus minutes has benefited from Studi's injury, and all of a sudden realizes that he's 6'8", he can drive, and that drive at Mississippi State where he drives and that gets fouled and dunks it, and he's making free throws now. Just Zach Davis has went from a role player to I don't mind him being in the game ever.
No, he's a closer, and great point. Because I always thought from his high school and his AAU and what I'd seen of his skill set, he was probably never going to be a great 3-point shooter, but with his length that he could drive and get to the rim, have some mid-range game, and, again, with his length, be able to draw fouls and go to the free throw line. But he was kind of lucky he didn't get called for a technical because he did do a chin up on the rim.
Hey, he had to stretch.
In the NBA, that's definitely a technical foul.
I haven't seen it get called. in the SEC this year, I don't think it's been a point of emphasis. I think they've let it go because Josh Gray has done it a few times too this year.
Yeah, I mean, talk about another guy's development. From that Georgia game where he looked like he had never shot a free throw in his life or understood how to do it, to going on the road at Tennessee, at home against Kentucky, at Ole Miss, and then on Saturday, Josh Gray only had 4 points, but 2 of 2 from the free throw line. He just calmly knocks them down.
They brought him in and he scored in like 30 seconds on that
Yes.
little kiss off the glass underneath. Was just Josh Gray inside 4 feet. I love him shooting all day long, and the dude can get rebounds, and he's developing to a player where 15, 20 minutes, put him in there. He can rebound, and when you're not getting him, he's at least the size where he can't get physically pushed around.
Yeah, I mean, he and BJ Mack complement each other because their skill sets are completely different. Mack is a guy who plays below the rim, but when he's on from 3, he is crafty, back to the basket. We saw it from the Virginia Tech game, the last play of the game. They isolate him. He backs the guy down, goes underneath the rim to protect because he can't jump. We didn't know it back then. I don't think he had a single dunk all year. I don't even think he can dunk a basketball. But
if he's making 3-pointers, I don't need him to dunk.
I don't care. That's right. Because Colin Murray Boyles can dunk flat-footed, under the basket, over 7-footers. Okay.
And he can block you. If you're a 6'4" guard or a 7'5" center, he'll block you.
Yes, that block of the 7'5" dude at the end of the Ole Miss game
won the game. Difference.
Wow.
He had 4 or 5 blocks this year where they were game changers. The Mississippi State game, he took that player's soul away. That kid had a family. I mean, he blocked the ball so hard that it went 30 feet, hit the ground, and up in 30 feet in the air. Wild.
I mean, Reed Shepherd was the freshman of the year. I can't really get mad at it. He's a blue blood. He
did nothing for us against us. We shut him down, if you remember.
He's a Kentucky legacy, but he went off against everybody else. And that's, the only puzzling thing to me about the postseason awards. Like, I get it. I personally find it hard to believe Talon Cooper in conference play from those 18 games, he's not a first team all SEC point guard with the amount of clutch plays, the assist to turnover ratio, the defense, the fact that, South Carolina led the SEC in defense, but yet did not have a single player on the all defensive team. At least put Cooper on the defensive team.
Sure.
Okay. If not first team, but again, remarkable in the fact you go 7-2 on the road. Your only road losses are in the state of Alabama, early in the season to Alabama when they just rained in 1,000,000 threes.
Well, we held them 20 points below their average, and for that half, up to the half, we had them. It was just that second half, buckets didn't fall.
Now Auburn, that was just a tired team that got boat raced, and it's kind of like the Warriors and Celtics where they didn't even play the starter. They shouldn't even have played the starters the second half.
If Auburn doesn't lose to Florida the game before that, I don't think they come out as hot.
But
we got an angry. Yeah.
I'll say this: I'll take that early home loss to Georgia because I think that really gave Lamont Paris the ammunition to refocus the team. We went on the 7-game win streak after that. We rebounded, we defended, we finished possessions with rebounds. We made free throws. We went 20 for 24 at the hump on Saturday from the free throw line. Tremendous improvement. And, we lost to LSU at home. But, and I want your take on this. I really thought we had no business beating Florida. I mean, Florida on a neutral floor, you line them up talent for talent, player for player down the roster. South Carolina, the home crowd really spurred Carolina to that win because Florida is a team I do not want to see in the postseason on a neutral floor. They have so much length, so much three-point shooting. I mean, wow, what a team they have.
Going into that game,
is a requirement at Florida for the head coach to look like Eddie Munster. I mean, you go from Billy Donovan to this guy, Todd Golden, and they both look like different iterations of Eddie Munster.
So going into that Florida game, we were both 9 of 11 with wins going into the game. We were both hot, but Florida was coming off games where they were just scoring 90-plus points. And we've noticed these teams like Tennessee, Kentucky, Florida, they come in and they realize we're playing good defense. And now some coaches like, was it Buzz at A&M that was saying that, of course, they have a good defense. They hold the ball. They're the slowest team on offense. So, of course, there's going to be less possessions, which I thought was a little bit of a, stab in the side. But it's just this team plays defense.
We went out there and spanked that ass for him.
And that Florida game, they were everything that we tried to do, they were doing it and kept it up. But teams struggle, right, on the road eventually. It just took Florida to, the last 5 to 7 minutes to start a little bit running out of gas. But then, we go to that 1-3-1. And it confuses them, and we get 5 steals and 7 possessions, and then in the last 2 minutes they go, okay, let's go put the guy in the corner and throw it into the corner and throw it to the wing. One of the wing or the top of the key, someone's gonna be open for three, and that kid.
They started picking the top, and they had to get out of it. But while they were in it, Florida had been lighting South Carolina up. They scored 8 points in 8 minutes, and they had about 7 turnovers while we were in the 1-3-1, which I thought was a masterful stroke of genius. And after Florida called a timeout, even before we got out of it, Lamont switched back to man for that one possession because, they were drawing up a play for it.
And Clayton Jr. was hitting shots that it didn't matter if you were in his face. He was making buckets that night. But eventually he misses last 2, and that's what mattered. But that game was probably the most proudest I was, even more than the proudest in the win at Tennessee. Because that Florida game, we were down for most of the game. And we just came back and just hit him in the mouth. Michi goes off. Michi drives. Michi's hitting threes. Nothing better when Michi, there's 5 or 6 seconds left. Everyone in the arena, Florida, everyone on that team knew he was going to shoot a 25-footer, and he shoots it, and it's just buckets. That Florida game was probably my top 2, top 3 games of the year.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think for me, the 3 best wins of the year are at Tennessee, Kentucky at home, and Florida. I mean, beating Ole Miss and Texas A&M and Mississippi State on the road to end the season, huge. All huge wins.
Can you name another South Carolina men's team that won that many SEC road games to end the year? Even the Final Four team, they had a 3 or 4 game losing streak.
96-97 is the only team. They only lost 1 road game. Back then, I think they only played 16 conference games.
Right.
They went 8-0 at home and 7-1 on the road. And they lost to Tubby Smith's Georgia team in Athens on, I think, a Saturday or a Sunday afternoon, and Gigi Smith, Tubby's son, just went off, and we didn't have it. But then we rebounded and went to Kentucky on senior day, and they played our old Kentucky home, and they had 9 NBA players on that team, and we went up there and beat them like a drum.
Was that pre-escort Ricky Pitino?
That was before they built the dormitory named after his. Well, that's while he was at Kentucky, so it was before Louisville.
I'm being funny.
But
no, it's just this team knows how to win on the road, and when you're winning on the road, it's just a confidence factor with this team. And also, I guess we talked about it a little bit, hitting on all these transfers at the same time. I mean, Clark, didn't play much, but he had a couple moments of defense this year. But Studi, when healthy, I know he was up and down. He's a definition of a streaky shooter. But Studi hitting on Studi, developing Michi, Cooper and Mac. Cooper steady all year. Mac streaky up and down at 3, but the guy, when he gets on the block, can score on the block. It's just having a dominant point guard and a scoring center. I can't remember the last time we had that combination, because when your 3-point shooting of your small forward, shooting guard, and occasional a power forward tweener, that we always have a tweener power forward undersized, when the threes aren't going, these old South Carolina teams would lose. But this team had 4 or 5 guys every night that was capable of leading the team in scoring. And that's why we didn't get a lot of – that's what we got. I'm proud that Michi and Talon got second team All-SEC, but it wouldn't have surprised me if they both didn't get second team, because this team is so balanced of who can – Zach Davis can lead one night. Colin Murray-Boyles can lead the night in scoring. Michi. I mean, didn't Josh Gray – was it the Georgia game? Is it between him and – Colin Murray-Boyles 1 or 2 points? I don't know if Gray led that game or not, but it's just anyone can lead the team in scoring, and that's where a great team, older, developed team that can win on the road is just – I know half this pod is me being shocked. I'm lost words on how nothing surprises me anymore with this team of how great they are in clutch moments.
No, and you brought up the winning on the road and the confidence factor and the style of play, I think, is why South Carolina is built for the postseason. They're built for the NCAA tournament. I may be one and done, but Thursday in the second game, they're going to take on the winner of Wednesday night's game between Arkansas and Vanderbilt. Arkansas is playing better of late. I guess
should have beat Alabama. Should have beat them. They laid an egg.
Could have beaten Alabama for sure. But look, Alabama, they live by the 3. They die by the 3. And that's why they didn't win it last year.
Yep.
And they could have, is because you're going to have a game in that tournament where you're going to have to lean on something other than the 3-point shooting. We've seen South Carolina be able to do that all year long with guys like Colin Murray-Boyles, Cooper, Michi going off the dribble, now Zach Davis, Josh Gray becoming more of a factor, and the craftiness of B.J. Mack. And so for South Carolina, if you win your first game, you're going to get Auburn sitting there.
And I can't wait. We're going to come out. We're ready to play Auburn, but not to look ahead.
On a neutral floor, right?
Yep.
In Nashville. It's not going to be at Auburn. And that's a revenge game for South Carolina.
And we win that first round or the second round game and then go into the Auburn technically would be what, the third round? I don't know how they call the rounds. Quarterfinals against Auburn. If we beat Auburn, we're playing for 4th seed, and we'd love to be a 4th seed in the tourney instead of in a 5-12 game where you're playing Grand Canyon or some powerhouse, mid conference team that is ready to beat somebody. Because the 5-12 upset, is it 1 or 2 of those a year? I would love to be in that 4-13, but regardless of who we play, this team will be ready.
So Jerry Palm, this will give long-suffering Gamecock fans some PTSD, has Carolina facing the Richmond Spiders in the first round. And in the 98 NCAA tournament, South Carolina was a 3 seed. Richmond was a 14. That was the year after losing as a 2-15 in the 2-15 game to Coppin State. They lost to Richmond in the 3-14. So we'll see what happens this weekend. One win, I think, helps your case. If you play Auburn, right, like they're a top 6 team, top 8 team in the net. That's not going to hurt you with the.
Well, we'll probably drop 3 spots if we beat Auburn, 2 or 3 spots in the net.
That's true. Well, the net was tied with Pat Adams and Kim Mulkey. Perfect segue into women's Gamecock women's basketball and the SEC tournament. I would mention both Joe Lenardi and Jerry Palm have South Carolina firmly on the 5 line right now as a 5 seed. I think, if you get one win, I think you're at least a 5. If you get 2 wins, then may be a 4 or even a 3 seed if you knock off Auburn, and then you're playing probably Tennessee in the semifinals. So
hey, who matches up better with Tennessee more than us? Nobody.
Well, Kentucky did on Saturday, but
Tennessee
I think had nothing to play for.
Tennessee did that on purpose to probably hurt us, actually.
All right, so just like nobody had, Lamont Paris as the SEC Coach of the Year, South Carolina winning 13 SEC games, 25-6. We just hope for a little better than 500 and the NIT, right?
That's right.
Now you're talking about being a 4 or 5 seed. Well, everybody knew Caitlin Clark was going to break Kelsey Plum's record.
Yeah.
Okay. There's no breaking of Pete Maravich's record. Okay. That's not a legitimate record. She played 130 games. Pete Maravich had no 3-point line and scored 3,667 points in
3 years?
3 games.
Was it 3 seasons?
83 games, 3 years. You couldn't play as a freshman. 83 games. The dude averaged 44 points for his career per game. Okay. Look, Caitlin Clark, a great player, an outstanding player, but she's not the greatest women's player of all time. She's not on the Mount Rushmore of the greatest women's players of all time. I mean, Pat Summitt probably had at least 2 or 3. I mean, Candace Parker, Holdsclaw certainly come to mind.
Breanna Stewart from UConn had
Breanna Stewart.
Yeah.
And I would say Diana Taurasi.
Sure.
Okay, she's the only person in her prime that I thought could shoot as good as Stephon Curry. Okay. Diana Taurasi, when she was like 28, 29 years old, she could shoot it like Pete Maravich. She was open from anywhere, and you knew it was going in.
Isn't she 40 or something now? She could still make
40.
those shots.
She's almost 40, yeah. Okay, she's not Cheryl Miller. Okay, so I don't even know that she's Dawn Staley or look. I watched Kim Mulkey play at Louisiana Tech, and she played like her hair was on fire, and maybe her face was on fire when she
Did
played.
she have sequins back then when she played? Were the sequins?
No sequins. She just had a ponytail and, played like her hair was on fire. So Dawn Staley loses 7 players, all 5 starters from an undefeated team They were picked 7th in the preseason. Everybody picked LSU to win the Southeastern Conference. South Carolina dispatched of them not once but twice. Angel Reese, her status, which she mentioned earlier in the week on Twitter or X, is never ever beaten South Carolina. Not at Maryland and not at LSU. 0-3 at LSU against the Gamecocks.
She's not scared, though.
Yeah, she's not scared. So, I mean, what do we make of this team? They're 32-0. They had, they had 24 turnovers against Texas A&M while shooting 51% from the field, 40% from the three, and almost 90% from the free throw line, and only won by 11. The Tennessee game on Saturday, so I'm umpiring a baseball tournament, and I've done 2 games, and so it's my game off. I'm listening to the men's game. I'm changing back into my plate gear for my 3rd game of 4 for the day. And I am in the dressing room, and I check my phone for the women's score, and it's in the second quarter. The score was 27-8. I'm like, we got this. So I go out. My game goes 2 hours. It's a 1-run game. I come back in 74-73. I'm like, well, they must have made it close. Then you see the miracle 3-point field goal by Cardoso. By the way, I've seen several games where the opponent has banked in a 3 from the top of the key. A little karma here. That's the first one we banked in all year, except maybe a Fulwiley buzzer beater.
Yeah.
But I didn't know until I actually got home and watched the game. Tennessee has a 2-point lead and chokes off not one but both free throws that could have ended the game. And then they foul South Carolina. We have no timeouts remaining. You want to give Dawn Staley, nobody gives her credit for X's and O's and coaching. That just shows they worked on time and score and end of game situations to where they drilled it. They had a play. They went to it. And for whatever reason, Kelly Harper just said, well, we ain't guarding her. Well, I mean, she catches it, steps behind the line. Perfect form on the shot, by the way. Yes, it went off the backboard, off the square and in.
They're worth the same amount of points than swishes.
That's right. And my favorite part, though, was the contrast of the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat, because if there's a team I've despised all my life in the SEC, outside of Pat Summitt and Rick Barnes at Tennessee, it is Tennessee. I don't like Kelly Harper, Kelly Jolly, whatever her name used to be when she played there. But I mean, I had it happen to me twice in my coaching career where we just got off to these huge early leads. We're up 26-5, and you substitute, and then the starters are like, man, this game's over. And
it's a mindset thing.
It's human nature. You see it in football sometimes. team will get up 28-0 the first quarter, and then they wind up fighting for their lives at the end of the game. And I thought that's what happened. And I'm going to tell you when it happened. And I know Dawn Staley was trying to steal some minutes for the championship game, for some rest for some players. But as soon as Sakima Walker came in that game at the end of the first half, South Carolina was up 20, and that lead went to 13. She committed an offensive foul on illegal screen immediately, then fouled a Tennessee player, then, couldn't guard anybody, and that gave them momentum. But what I can't really figure out is how and why you go into the fourth quarter with a 12-point lead, and you get outscored 25-14, and you have to have the miracle, not only the miracle shot, but the choke from the free throw line. That was very bewildering. But at the end of the day, Virginia Tech was the number 1 seed in the ACC tournament. They lost.
Their best girl got hurt, I think, a little bit earlier in the year, right?
Well, they're softer than a roll of Charmin anyway.
Yeah.
Stanford with Cameron Brink, whose mother looks exactly like the Joker because of the bad Botox. They were the number 1 seed. They lost their tournament. Okay. I know there was another one. Oh, the Big Ten tournament.
Ohio State
went out in the first round to Maryland. And so you can talk about a little bit of luck. You can talk about a little bit of sloppy play. We haven't got to Sunday yet, but South Carolina is still the only number 1 seed and regular season champion thus far to win their conference tournament in a power conference.
Well, Keith, the SEC tournament as a whole, this team wasn't firing on all cylinders, right? That A&M game, you have all those turnovers like you mentioned, but shoot well. We didn't play a great game, and it's amazing when you can play a really bad game and then beat someone by double digits. That's just on pure talent alone, A&M. And then what's the coach at A&M that was at Georgia? What was her name?
Oh, Joni
Mitchell.
Yeah.
She's a great coach, right? Between her and the Ole Miss coach.
Best looking head coach in the SEC. It's not even.
Well, the Ole Miss coach and her are, if we didn't have Dawn, I wouldn't bat an eye with taking any of those coaches as a head coach. But anyway, A&M game, it was sloppy, right? But you know what? They won by 10 plus, and you're like, okay, it's going to be fine. And then I was at Thirsty Fellow with some of the GBO listeners, and we were enjoying an up and down crazy overtime game and watching the Starkville game, Mississippi State men. And I put on, because it went to overtime, it was going to overlap perfect, but we went to overtime, so we were watching on our phones at the bar. And you look down and there's 3 minutes left to go in the first quarter, and we're up 13-0. And I'm like, man, this is great. And as you mentioned, second quarter was at 26-8 or something. It was just
31-10. It was 31-10.
And I'm just going, I didn't even listen to it on the radio driving back to the house because I'm like, this game's over. And I come back, and then I get back, and at halftime, what was the halftime score?
Carolina was still up by 13.
So I'm like this, okay, we'll get rolling in that third quarter.
36-23.
Rakia Jackson was going off. They were getting rebounds, and I don't know what happened with our offensive and defensive rebounding. It kind of just went away. Kitts, Watkins, and Cardoso just weren't rebounding as well in that second half. And anything that Tennessee wanted, they got in the end of that third quarter to the most of the fourth quarter.
50 points in the second half for the Lady Vols.
And when they got that, Rakia Jackson got that rebound and put back with what? a little over a second, 2 seconds left, and you're going, oh my gosh. I think it was, if you looked at the predictor of the game winning percentage, Tennessee was at 99.9% at that moment. And then you see it drop us after the shot. But if they don't, they had a foul to give, right? If Tennessee doesn't foul, MIlaysia shoots a good shot from half court, but it wasn't going to go in. If they don't foul, the game's over. And they foul, and you see Dawn calling and coaching, calling a play, coaching at the players for what, the 15 seconds it took for them the ref to get it situated. And then, she has Cardoso wide open, and it's what's so funny. And you're been a basketball coach. You always put a man on a man, a woman on a woman, now sometimes you don't guard the inbound, right? But you always guard the people on the courts because they can,
I always believe in guarding the inbound pass, because you don't want somebody to have just a clean, easy pass. And that goes back to the Christian Laettner play against Kentucky when they didn't guard the inbound pass from Grant Hill.
But anyway, so the Tennessee center is 4 feet in front of the basket, and she's putting her hands up. And Cardoso is wide open on the line of the 3-point line. Perfect throw from Johnson to Cardoso. She catches it, and she looks like a guard. She catches it. She moves her feet back, and it's going to be a 3-pointer. And full extension, beautiful shot, a little more oomph on it. It goes in, and it's the shot of the year, right? It has to be the shot of the year. I know we've had so many great games this year, but LSU game during the season was just wild. But Cardoso hitting that shot, it was just amazing to see this team literally on the brink of losing for the first time in how long? I've lost track. Since last April, and
since the Iowa game, yeah.
And they just steal the win. And I was like, they need to get on the bus and get out of there.
Tennessee's soul. You could see Kelly Harper's soul leaving her body on the sideline.
And she's coaching for her job. At Tennessee, It's not that you make NCAA tournaments. It's you to be making Sweet 16 and Elite Eights to keep your job. But that's why you saw the tears with her. She's coaching for her job. And who does less with more than Kelly Harper? Nobody. But anyway,
the previous coach at Tennessee,
who's one of the worst SEC analysts on the network, by the way, I forgot her name, the short hair blonde. But anyway, it's just amazing to see that come back. And how great was it? Cardoso's family is sitting in the stands and gets to see that. It was just a beautiful moment, and it was nice to see all the haters on Twitter and all the announcers. Everyone and that's not a Gamecock fan wants to see us lose, because they have, Gamecock envy. They're sick and tired of us. And it was beautiful. And it just led up to the perfect SEC tournament championship game that everyone wanted to see against LSU.
That's right. You had Dawn Staley and her ladies who have exemplified nothing but class against Trailer Park Barbie and Ghetto Barbie.
They've played dirty all year.
Angel Reese, not the dirtiest player. She may be the dirtiest women's player that I have ever seen in the women's game. Her attitude, the amount of trash she talks, early in the season, she throws her hip into that girl early in the season that wound up blowing out her knee. We saw what she did to Cardoso. She elbows her in the throat. She did get caught for a technical foul. She pulled her by the hair, almost pulled her down. She pulled her hair so hard. And then nobody knew how Camilla got a bloody lip. Well, finally found that clip, she got another blatant elbow right in the mouth. 3 officials, none of them see it. Okay, and you wonder why Camila Cardoso is charged up. Okay,
She had enough.
She's
They
been called
pulled her hair.
Every name in the book, right? She's had her hair pulled, and then Flau'jae Johnson gets her pocket picked by MIlaysia Fulwiley,
MVP.
okay, who was going off to the races. She reaches out, grabs her, and then just didn't hold her or wrap her up to keep her from falling. She spun her around 2 times. Okay, yes, Ashlyn Watkins kind of let out a yell and flexed. But then Flau'jae Johnson shoves her and tries to come up with an elbow into the face, and Camila Cardoso snapped. Okay, enough was enough, and she let her have it. And I'm not I'm not defending her actions. Do I wish it had been Angel Reese? Hell yes. Okay, Kim Mulkey, that's about the only thing you said that I agreed with was I do wish she would have pushed Angel Reese, because Reese is a bully. And what happens when you call out a bully is
She would have laid on the ground and she wouldn't have got back up because she knew it wouldn't go well.
exactly.
But hey, Cardoso, I don't mind people talking trash, right? Trash talk is basketball, but as soon as you start throwing elbows,
Trash.
but when you start throwing elbows and you start hitting above the head, that's where I have a problem with it. And Cardoso snapped. She shouldn't have done it. She'll miss the first game in the NCAA tournament. Not a big deal, but you don't hate to see that. But you know what? Going up to that, the refs let all that happen.
Yes,
they let the
did.
build-up happen, and if they would have called fouls and technicals early on, it wouldn't have got to that point. So part of the blame on that is how that was reffed, that whole game.
Well, I mean, let's face it. It is the worst officiated sport in the NCAA. I mean, even as bad as Pat Adams sucks, he's still better than every women's college basketball official. And I know that's a hard thing to wrap your head around. But it's true. But so, you know, while they were trying to figure out what happened, I watched A Few Good Men and The Godfather Part 2 in full.
I timed it. It was 12 minutes, by the way. That's how long the stoppage was.
All right, and so they decided that there was going to be an intentional foul on Flau'jae Johnson, and there was a flagrant foul, DQ on Cardoso. So both teams shot 2 free throws, and all the players that left the bench area, they were ejected.
Except for Fagan. Fagan stayed on the line. It was perfect.
Right. Although, quite frankly, I didn't really think Tessa Johnson or Kitts should have been kicked out because they did not go past the coach's box.
But because they got up and left, and they were in between the bench, end of the bench, and the coach's line, that's what they called leaving the bench.
All right, but so here's what the referees failed to do. Okay. 1, Flau'jae Johnson fully shoved Ashlyn Watkins with 2 hands and attempted to elbow her in the face.
They were going to call intentional foul until Cardoso pushed, but they all of a sudden forgot about it.
All right, so that should have been either a flagrant foul, a disqualification, or technical, but it should have resulted in at least 2 free throws. Okay, then Haley Van Lith runs up there and acts like and puts her hands on Cardoso. That should have been a technical foul. 2 more free throws. And then Flau'jae Johnson's brother jumping the scorer's table onto the floor. Okay. There's a very famous and notorious Gamecock fan who was a student, who is now a member of the bar, who was at that Louisville, South Carolina game in 1988, who got a technical foul for leaving the stands and getting in a Louisville player's face. South Carolina's bench was assessed a technical for that. So the way I look at it is South Carolina got shorted 6 free throws in that deal, which meant the game would have been beyond reach, right? Because Powell probably shoots all 6 of those and makes all 6 of those.
I imagine if it was a tie game, that would have been even more people screaming. But because we were up 5 or 7, that's the only difference that we win.
And so, look, you have to talk about MIlaysia Fulwiley.
Great
24
game.
Points in 17 minutes. And I'm going to mention Tessa Johnson and her play in all 3 games. This freshman dynamic duo in the backcourt is not just the future. Right now, they're really playing better than Raven Johnson and Tahina Powell are playing collectively.
I agree. Tessa Johnson went from playing 3 minutes a game. Now she's getting 15 plus. I mean, she
was getting more than that, except for when she had the ankle injury. That set her back. But now she is leading. She led the team in SEC play and 3-point shooting. But now she's driving the ball. She's pulling up in the mid-range, and she is a great defender. She was on Rakia Jackson. She was on Flau'jae and Michaela Williams on Sunday when she was in. I mean, she's 6 foot tall and she can really play. And Fulwiley plays so hard. I think Dawn has to play her in spurts because she wears herself out because she plays so hard on defense because she knows she has to. But what a game from her. She's named the most outstanding player in the SEC tournament.
Deserved
24 points, 17 minutes, 8 of 12 from the field, 4 of 5 from downtown, 14 second half points, 10 points in the first half, 4 for 4 from the free throw line, 2 assists, 2 steals, and a team high +8 in just 17 minutes. And I guess, look, Bree Hall had 9, Raven had 9,
balanced.
Carter had 8, Powell had 12. So she wasn't the only player that hurt LSU, but MIlaysia Fulwiley was clearly the difference maker in South Carolina winning or not winning the SEC championship, tournament championship game. And that's why she was named the most outstanding player. And what a performance and what a preview of things to come. She's just a freshman.
She's only 18. And I mean, you look past every now and then she has a turnover that makes you shake your head. But there were parts in that game where our team couldn't score. And Fulwiley was out there making baskets happen or hitting threes. And they weren't threes that were barely on the line. She was hitting threes from far out.
Caitlin Clark range.
I mean, she was locked in. She wanted another championship, and she was going to get it. And it didn't matter. She was playing like a 22-year-old senior out there. And I think she only had 2 turnovers and shooting at that high clip. I mean, I was tweeting in the second half that don't take her out. She was playing so well, don't take her out. But as you were saying, she does occasionally get tired, but she was locked in, and no surprise she wins the MVP, the first of many trophies that she's going to be a part of, and awards she's getting in her career.
And just like I told Emily Adams after the Notre Dame and Maryland games, when she was starting to have, some career, 3 or 4 straight career highs, I said, we're going to be saying that a lot. Well, we are saying it about the biggest game of the year, her career high, 24 points. Her best shooting day of the year on the biggest stage against the arch nemesis and the last year's national champions, LSU, and South Carolina, other than Cardoso, a little Breezy Hall, a little Raven Johnson, nobody else played.
Hey, the difference in this game also was just the depth. LSU plays 7, and one of the girls got hurt the night before. They just don't have the depth, and I know they play pretty well still, but when you're only playing 7 players and you're playing the Gamecocks, you're tired. And I think that's why you saw us kind of break away a little bit in the last couple of minutes, even before the altercations. That
so here's some key stats for you. Flau'jae Johnson, 40 minutes. Haley Van Lith, 40 minutes. Anissa Morrow, 40 minutes. Angel Reese, because of foul trouble, 34 minutes. Michaela Williams, only 23 minutes because she was dealing with an injury.
Right.
And Janae Kent played 13 minutes. And Aaliyah Del Rosario played 9 minutes. But LSU's players that played the most minutes, every one of them, -7, -6, -7, -6, -7. I said going into this, when I previewed the tournament, South Carolina, because of their depth, was built to play 3 games in 3 days. LSU was not. And I hate that Poa couldn't play because of that violent head injury. We certainly wish her the best.
Mm-hmm.
But South Carolina is just a better team. And you boat raced them last year, but now with a whole new cast, you go to Baton Rouge, you take them down with Breezy Hall hitting clutch shot after clutch shot late in that game.
Bree Hall loves playing LSU. Woo.
Yes. And she was really clutch in the mid-range in that fourth quarter. I mean, when you look at
that driving bucket where she got fouled, beautiful. Made the bucket.
Yes. And then Fulwiley, full display. I mean, just amazing what she did. And so South Carolina's 32-0, and none of the national media had that on their bingo cards. They all knew Caitlin Clark was going to break the record, but nobody picked South Carolina to win the SEC. Nobody certainly picked them to be the number 1 team in the country, and nobody thought it was possible for them to have another undefeated season. They're the only SEC team to ever go 16-0 in SEC play 2 years in a row. They broke the long-held record of most consecutive SEC regular season wins by Tennessee with this group. And you're probably only going to lose 1 player that really plays off of this team. And you may not even lose her.
Does Cardoso have another year?
She does.
she's only projected, I think, the 4th pick. Imagine if she came. I mean, with Pow coming back and having that 3-point coming back, but we can talk about next year in the off season. But I'm just Cardoso and Pow. They both came back. And Pow's saying she's coming back, but if Cardoso comes back with her, man, this team's only going to be better. And then you have the freshman class coming in. Oh man.
Yeah, there's not enough minutes if everybody comes back.
But you know what? What's the one coach that could handle all those stars and egos? Dawn can. Dawn has just proven that she can do whatever she wants. She has it all figured out. And I never doubt Dawn, ever. I never get mad at Dawn. Why would you question her? She knows what's going on at all times. And when she's upset, I love her scowl on the sideline when she looks mad. But it's just, I didn't see it happening. I thought we'd have 2 or 3 losses this year at least. But now I have it thinking it doesn't matter who's in the uniform. As long as Dawn is the coach, we have a 98% chance of winning.
So now there are 6 one-game seasons.
That's right.
It's win or go home. South Carolina still the prohibitive favorite. I don't know what's going to happen. I thought they were a lock to win it last year. I thought they would have definitely won it in 20 had COVID not shut it down. And really, had it not been for the dirty play of Stanford and the lack of officiating, they probably win that game. Or if Bree Beal can just make a layup.
I just hope. I guess Iowa's going to be a number 1 seed. I can see if they're going to be the 3 or the 4 number 1 seed.
No, they're number 2 right now because they won the Big Ten tournament, and they are the number 2 seed, and so we would not see them
in the final,
the national championship game. I don't think they make it that far, quite frankly.
Hey, but how great would it be if LSU makes it? We play them in the Final Four, beat them again, and then go and beat Iowa. That would just be you couldn't write it for a book, a movie. I would love some payback, and I would love to beat LSU just one more time, just to make sure to let them know that we're not scared of them either.
It wouldn't hurt my feelings at all.
But hey, and you don't want, you can drink Kim Mulkey's tears, right? I think you can enjoy those a little bit.
I don't want to drink anything that comes from Kim Mulkey's body. I'm sorry. No.
But I see this team. I mean, this team's going to the Final Four. There's no question in my mind. It's just once you get there, you got to play your best, and you can't have those games where you have 25 turnovers or you're missing 10, 12 layups. Where you have to come to play, but I have no doubt in my mind this team's ready to rock and ready to avenge last year's loss.
But see, for me, that's the question mark, because what if you get a Texas in the Elite 8 or a UCLA or a Southern Cal or an Ohio State, and they just play out of their mind, and Pow goes 1 for 7 from 3 and you turn it over 25 times. Ashlyn Watkins gets in early foul trouble. I mean,
if 3 or 4 of those things happen in the same game, we're in trouble. But again, this team rises above, and at least this year they can't triple team Cardoso like they did Boston last year. We're going to shoot threes, and the chances of all of our girls being off 3 night, I highly doubt that. But even if Pow has a bad game, you have Fulwiley coming out of nowhere, and Fulwiley seems like to me is a guard that if she's not hitting her threes, she's driving and dishing, no look passing. We can survive 2 or 3 players having a bad night.
Johnson.
Yep.
This team has the depth. They have the versatility. They have the athletes, but players like Sanaya Fagan, Ashlyn Watkins, and Chloe Kitts, they have to bring it every night. To me, the players that do not start that are most dependable at this point in the season are the freshman guards in Fulwiley and Tessa Johnson. You know what they're going to bring every night.
Yep.
It's just how hot is Fulwiley going to be from three? If she's not, she's going to start going off the dribble more.
Right.
So to be determined, SEC men's tournament this week, Selection Sunday, March Madness begins. Gamecocks are going to have both teams in it and may have not only, this was only the third time in SEC history, the men's and women's basketball coach of the year come from the same school. How many times has that happened nationally? And I think it's got a great shot of happening this year.
I don't think it's ever happened, but I think this is the year. I mean, if they give it to the UConn coach that had all that talent already, Lamont Paris did so much more with less. And he developed guys that were 2- and 3-star guys and made them winners. It's what a story. What a turnaround. We're going to be, in a few years from now, we're going to go back and look at this season and how special it was. But look for the men. I think they're going to win their, the first, not the opening round, the first round game against either Vandy or Arkansas, and expect a close game against Auburn. I would love a win. I'm not going to predict it, but I could see it happening, and I would love Bruce Pearl to cry a little bit and sweat through a few shirts.
I would definitely go for that. Brice, I can't thank you enough. Great stuff as always. Give Sumter our best.
Yep.
He's in my thoughts and prayers.
Yep.
And we'll definitely look forward to catching up with you again down the road.
Yep, we'll join you again, especially in the heart of March Madness. I love talking basketball with you, and I just love that, again, you talk basketball almost more than anyone else out there, maybe outside us, because we just only talk about it. But we appreciate your love of basketball, and hopefully we'll get all these other Gamecock podcasts to talk more about it, because why not? We're a basketball school.
Right, especially women's basketball.
Hey, now we can call it a basketball school in general. So anyway, enjoyed the time.
All right, Brice, me too. Thanks again. We'll look forward to catching up with you down the road.
GBO out.
All right, that was my conversation with Brice Hedgecock from the Gamecock Basketball Only Podcast, GBO _pod, available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get it. Go and listen to those guys, Sumter and Brice. They're great. I can't wait for all three of us to chop it up. So just a couple of notes to end the show. South Carolina women's basketball, by the way, the men went 3-3 against top 25 opponents this year. South Carolina's women end up going 4-0 against the top 10 and 5-0 against the final top 20. They beat LSU twice, once on the road, once at a neutral site. They beat Notre Dame, who finishes in the top 10 on a neutral site. And then the lone home win against the top 10 team against UConn, which was a blowout. Okay, and so you go 4-0 against the top 10 with only one game coming at home. All right, if you get a chance, go to YouTube, look up Nick Saban testifying on name, image, and likeness before the U.S. Senate with his former high school teammate Joe Manchin. Ted Cruz was sitting right next to him. Why? I don't know. I probably wouldn't have wanted to sit next to Ted Cruz, but that's just me. It's worth the watch. It's worth the listen. Nick Saban is asked why, he retired from coaching. He talks about how it used to be, talking to his wife about it, the current system and what has to happen for it to change and get better. And look, without Congress enacting legislation across the board, NIL has got to be fair. And Nick Saban compares it to the National Football League salary cap. So give that a listen. We'll be back for the Garnet and Black Town Hall. You can sign up tonight and join us live. I got a feeling it's going to be epic. And then I will probably do a rapid reaction podcast on Thursday after the South Carolina first round game in the SEC tournament. And then we will have a show on Friday. So until then, I can't thank the record number of people, the fans, the folks that love Gamecock basketball that can listen to my lower Pickens County country accent for almost 2 hours. Thanks for tuning in. Come back. Give us a like. Rate us 5 stars. Check us out. You can get this podcast every single day and be a part of essentially like being at your favorite sports bar with all your Gamecock friends talking about the Gamecocks and crapping all over Kim Mulkey and LSU, which I have a feeling that is going to happen tonight. So special thanks to Brice. We wish Sumter nothing but the best. I'll be back Thursday and Friday of this week on Gamecock Pod Daily on Patreon. Check us out. You can basically get a month's membership for the cost of one trip to Starbucks per month. All right. So until tomorrow, Keith Alsep saying God bless. Go Gamecocks. Thanks to the record 123 people that tuned in to watch live. Come on over. Join us. You'll love it. I guarantee it. God bless you all and go Gamecocks. I'm out of here.